What if a city's success was measured not by its GDP, but instead by how happy its people are? In Bhutan, that is exactly what's happening. Gelephu Mindfulness City is being built not to compete with Dubai skyscrapers or Neom's futuristic designs, but instead to offer a radical alternative. A city built for happiness. Spanning over 1,000 square kilometers, it's going to be bigger than Singapore. This city will have no high-rise towers, no glossy facades. Instead, it's going to embrace nature and sustainable living. And it's pretty interesting because the goal here isn't economic growth. Instead, it's personal well-being and harmony with nature. But how is this bold idea going to come to life? What does a city built for peace and happiness actually look like? In the next few minutes of today's video, we're going to find out. To understand the idea behind Gelephu Mindfulness City, we first need to understand Bhutan itself. A country that has taken a refreshingly different path when it comes to development. Tucked between India and China, Bhutan is a small kingdom high in the eastern Himalayas. It's got a population of about 780,000, which is actually not that much. And it's often called one of the last real-life Shangri-La havens. Imagine a peaceful land filled with ancient monasteries, towering mountains, and thick forests. Kind of like in the movie Avatar. And Bhutan is also one of the last few places on Earth that you're not going to find any skyscrapers or fancy malls. And there's a reason for that. Since the 1970s, Bhutan has focused on something much more meaningful than just growing its economy. It's called Gross National Happiness, or GNH. This special idea was introduced by Bhutan's previous king, Jigme Singye Wangchuck, as a better way to measure success. So it's not by how much the country makes, but instead literally by how happy its people are. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like putting people's spiritual well-being, caring for nature, and protecting the culture above all else. And this has made Bhutan a kind of symbol around the world for happiness and sustainable living. However, despite these lofty ideals, Bhutan is facing a growing crisis. Young people are leaving the country in droves. By mid-2024, around 64,000 Bhutanese, that's around 9% of the population, were living overseas. There's an upward trend for youth unemployment rates. In 2023, it was nearly 16%, with urban cities often reporting much higher figures. These are the very people who could shape Bhutan's future. Instead, they're choosing to build a life somewhere else. Somewhere else that's got more opportunities, more choices, and better wages. And that's a big problem for a country trying to hold on to its unique values while also trying to adapt to a modern world. So how do you fix that? The King of Bhutan has a bold answer: to build a new kind of city. A city that gives young people a reason to stay, not just with jobs, but with purpose. And this is where Gelephu Mindfulness City comes in. This project isn't just about buildings or businesses. No, it's about creating an economy that fits with Bhutan's values. It's a place where tradition and technology meet to offer a new path forward for the whole country. So, what does building a city based on mindfulness really look like? Gelephu Mindfulness City is not your typical futuristic megacity. It's not about building fast, it's not about glass towers, and it's not about the high-tech hustle. Instead, it's a city of awareness. It's a place where living mindfully and protecting nature are built into the city itself. If you look up Gelephu Mindfulness City and you see the images and the renders, you're going to notice that there are no skyscrapers. Unlike places like Dubai and even New York, where tall towers reach for clouds, Gelephu is doing the opposite. The buildings will be no taller than 6 stories, and this is to cut down the use of materials like steel and concrete, which are probably the 2 biggest attributes for the construction industry's carbon emissions. Instead, the city is going to use wood, stone, and even bamboo. They're going to use natural materials which are more sustainable. And the way the city is planned is pretty unique too. Instead of building roads and bridges just to move traffic, Gelephu will use inhabitable bridges. These won't just help people move from one place to another. No, they're actually going to be places for people to gather, work, and live. These bridges are going to hold some of the city's most important spaces. For example, a healthcare center that combines Eastern and Western medicine, a cultural center, and a market for local goods, and even an airport. I know, on a bridge. There is a common theme in the design of all of these spaces, and that is the bold integration of Bhutanese traditional architecture and craftsmanship. And this is particularly noticeable in the design of the airport, which I want to geek out on for a little bit because it's quite literally a work of art. Even if it's just renders at this stage, it's aiming to welcome 1.3 million passengers annually by 2040, which is more people than the current population of Bhutan. So from the outside, the roof of the airport rises and falls like a sleek mini mountain range. And these are carried by a diagrid structure made from locally sourced timber. And it's designed in a way that the modules can grow as travel increases. And because Gelephu is hot and humid, the terminal leans on passive cooling. They have ventilated roofs and are letting the surrounding forest flow through the arrival plaza. Yeah, lush green courtyards to pull the breezes through, and deep eaves that shade passengers from monsoon rains. But I personally think that the bit that stands out the most are the beautiful motifs on the facade of the Kachen timber, which is a traditional large timber column that's both structural and decorative. Bjarke Ingels, founder of BIG, says that an airport is the first and last impression that you get of a place that you visit. That is so true. So to make an impression, these mass timbers are adorned with 3 types of dragons, representing the past, present, and future of Bhutan. The result is traditional, yet avant-garde, forward-reaching, and rooted. I couldn't have said that better myself. And these are essentially a showcase of regional craftsmanship, including the Xingzhou, which is carpentry, and the Lazhou, which is painting. And get this, the airport is designed to instill mindfulness into the often stressful experience of traveling, which I don't know about you, but I have experienced quite a lot of. Another standout feature of GMC, besides the airport, is the Sankosh Temple Dam. It's a hydro structure that doubles as a public temple in the middle and a promenade. Its stepped terraces and landings take inspiration from the ancient step wells of India, turning necessary water infrastructure into a place for gathering, prayers, and views across the river. And the shape of GMC follows something called a mandala, a sacred pattern in Buddhist culture. That means that neighborhoods are going to be built in a circle surrounding a public space, creating balance and peace. And it's meant to bring people together and support community life. But now the big question is, how do you build a city like this without harming nature? So, Gelephu Mindfulness City is built to work with nature, not against it. There are 35 rivers and streams in the area, and instead of coloring them or rerouting them, the city will keep them flowing through its design. These waterways will connect neighborhoods, making them a part of everyday life. And when it comes to floods, the city's not going to rely on big drains or heavy concrete. Instead, rice paddies and farms are going to be planted along the rivers, which will act as natural buffers and soak up extra water during the monsoon season, helping to protect the city without harming the land. This approach is a far cry from the typical model of urbanization, which often involves paving over nature to make way for concrete roads and high-rise buildings. In Gelephu, nature is woven into the very structure of the city, and these rivers will also act as biodiversity corridors, ensuring that the migratory routes of the wildlife, for example the elephants, go undisturbed. Bhutan is one out of just 3 carbon-negative countries in the world, alongside Suriname and Panama. And so GMC will aim to keep this carbon-negative status as a hallmark of Bhutan's commitment to environmental sustainability. Hey guys, I just quickly want to interject here to make it clear that the GMC itself is targeting carbon neutrality in its operations to support Bhutan, the country as a whole's status as a carbon negative nation, rather than GMC itself targeting to be carbon negative. Right. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now let's talk about the people who are going to live there. Part of the plan is to help its people build healthier and happier lives. And this is why the GNH index, the gross national happiness, was introduced in the first place. But I want to expand on the GNH a little bit. I want to explain to you how it works. So the GNH index is not just a simple number. It's made up of 9 important areas that represent all parts of life. And these include all of the things here that you see on the screen, including cultural diversity, health, education, and living standards. The idea was to make sure that growth wasn't just about wealth, but rather one that adopts a more holistic approach. In fact, Bhutan's GNH philosophy looks at both objective and subjective feelings. Subjective feelings like personal happiness and well-being, and objective factors like how healthy people are, how clean the air is, or how well people are educated. Bhutan surveys its citizens regularly to track these indicators and see how well the country is doing on all fronts. And the result is a score between 0 and 1 that shows how well the country is doing in balancing both material things and non-material things like contentment. And how does that look like in the city itself? Gelephu will be full of places that bring people together, like centers for mindfulness, schools, and cultural spaces. The long-term vision for Gelephu Mindfulness City is to create a sustainable, thriving urban space that attracts environmentally conscious investors, entrepreneurs, and individuals seeking a mindful way of life. The city is designed not to just meet the current needs of Bhutan citizens, but to provide a model for future urban development that can be replicated not just across Bhutan, but across the rest of the world. The city's Special Administrative Region, or SAR status, will allow it to operate with a degree of autonomy from Bhutan's legal framework, creating a rather unique environment for business and innovation. There's also talk about creating a new crypto reserve, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Binance Coin, as part of their digital asset framework, alongside a full digital reserve bank called Oro Bank. This move is in the hopes that it's going to attract forward-thinking investors looking for new opportunities in a low-carbon, sustainable economy. As the construction of Gelephu Mindfulness City progresses, it's pretty clear that Bhutan is trying to reinvent the wheel of what it means to live in a modern city. It's not a project driven by the demands of capitalism. Instead, it's a bold experiment to build a city that aligns with the country's core values of happiness, sustainability, and spiritual growth. As the city begins to take shape, the world will be watching to see if this innovative vision for sustainable urban living to succeed in a world that's often dominated by profit-driven megacities. Only time will tell. In the meantime, if you're interested to know more about the complete opposite GDP-driven project in Saudi Arabia, NEOM, I made another video about how that project is falling behind schedule, billions over budget, and shrouded in controversy. If you're in for a juicy deep dive, I think you're gonna like that video. And if I don't see you there, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, thanks for watching.